Thank you. Who here isn't here to see me, but is here to see our fabulous guest of honor, DeeDee? Let's keep that round of applause going for DeeDee!
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. All right. Now, down to brass tacks. You're awesome.
Oh my gosh.
And
You're
panel
awesome.
over!
Oh.
That's it! No.
All right.
No, so, DeeDee, as many people here in the audience may know, you are the voice of a character on a show called, what was it? I'm trying to think in my head. What was it called? Doc McStuffin.
Yes.
And also Steven Universe.
And
also Steven Universe. So you were the voice of Pearl on Steven Universe.
That is correct.
Which is a phenomenal show. We've talked about it a few times at various panels over the weekend. So for those of the people here in the audience who may not know the entire breadth of your career, let's start at the beginning. With the theater.
Start at the very beginning.
It's a very good place to start.
It is.
So you have an extensive background in theater and musical theater.
Yes, in musical theater. But before I did musical theater, I was on a little TV show on the Disney Channel.
A little one. Yeah.
It was called the New Mickey Mouse Club on the Disney Channel. And thanks.
I remember the New Mickey Mouse Club.
Really?
It was amazing.
Because I'm dating myself, and I'm sure that I'm older than you, but it was a show in the 90s.
We're young at heart.
Yes. It launched the careers of, or helped to anyway, launch the careers of people that you may know today. Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera,
Justin
Timberlake. My goodness, Carrie Russell, Ryan Gosling.
I forgot about Ryan Gosling. He was a Mouseketeer.
Right? He was. So we were, there was...
And you were all in the same cast at that point? Yes.
Well, I was part of the original cast, so I was in the sort of the older group of kids. And then as we got a little bit older, they started to bring more cast members in. And so Brittany and Christina and Justin and then Ryan, they were all, they were like the younger kids that came in a little bit later. There were so many cast members in that show that went off to continue doing music. Tony Luca was also on The Voice. I don't know if you remember him, but they're all still doing what they love to do. So
as are you.
And
you went on to do more music as well.
I did.
As a part of the pop group, The Party.
Yes, and that was also a 90s pop group. We opened
also
up...
probably one of the best names I have ever heard of for a pop group.
Well, it wasn't.
That all you?
To bring, no. I was definitely not the party pooper, though.
Oh.
I liked to, have a nice time, responsibly, of course. But yeah, so that group stemmed off of the New Mickey Mouse Club. And we recorded 4 albums with Hollywood Records. We were actually the first pop group to sign with Hollywood Records back in the day.
And I believe you also got to travel with The Party.
We did.
And I think you traveled internationally with that group?
We sure did. We were all over the US, Canada, Asia, Europe, and we opened up for people like High Five and Color Me Bad and Vanilla Ice, just to name a few. But that was a great time in our lives. In fact, I'm sure that we traveled through San Francisco area, but yeah, pop singing group. I've met a few people here today and yesterday and the day before that actually remember the group. So
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, back when Tower Records was still alive. Does anybody know? Nope, nobody knows.
Tower Records. Round of applause for Tower Records.
Yes.
Round of applause.
But before I forget, because I will,
Yes.
I just want to say thank you so much to Kraken for having me. I understand that this is the last con, and
This is.
it just is so special. I feel very honored to be part of the guests here, and I just wish you all the best.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel very honored to have been asked to come back and perform myself and get to interview our fabulous guests. I've, like many of the people here, have been coming to Kraken Con for quite a while. I actually met the love of my life here at Kraken Con about 4 years ago. So it's very special to me, so this entire convention has been like almost in tears. But it's so amazing to get to be here and get to celebrate kind of the era of Kraken Con. So back to your work, because this isn't the me show. It's the Squidly show.
Yeah, the Squidly show.
I wanted to ask you about kind of how you went from Mickey Mouse Club into theater. Was that congruent, or was it something that just bit you afterwards?
Well, while I was traveling with the party, we went to London for some promotional work out there, and I was able to watch Miss Saigon. That was the original company was started in London. So I was about 16 at the time, and I was there with my mother. With the group, she traveled because we had, we were underage, so we had to have our chaperone. So my mom was with me.
Really quick aside,
Oh, yeah.
how was that? Traveling at such like an early age and getting to see the world?
It was amazing, and I really wish that we had cell phones back then because I would have taken way more pictures. I mean, we had the real cameras and stuff, but
Yeah.
everything's digital now. I'd have to go into my storage to look for these photographs. But it was wonderful, and I got to travel with my parents. They swapped every once in a while because I had siblings and they were in school, and so my parents would come and.
Oh, that's
they
really
would swap.
nice.
Yeah.
That's actually really nice that they got to split time like
I
that.
know.
So
So
that
we got to.
no one got to be without you for too long.
Yeah, well, it was me that was missing my family,
Oh.
but so my mom and I went to go see Miss Saigon, and I fell in love with the show. I fell in love with the music, and the fact that I could, I saw the starring role in this ingenue, and I thought, my goodness, I want to play that part someday. And my mother, I don't know if you're familiar with the show, but it's she. It's kind of a mature, role. So my mother was just like, and there was like, love scenes and things like that. And she's like, you can't do this right now. You're only 16. And so I waited
a little later.
Yeah. So when I was 19, I auditioned for the show, and I got it. So that was my very first. Actually, there was somebody, Fred Newman, who is one of the hosts of the Mickey Mouse Club back in the day. He was the one. He lives in New York, and he was the one who introduced me to the musical Miss Saigon, and he says, you have to watch this show, I think you would be great in it. And then fast forward to the time that I went to London, I saw the show, finally memorized all the words in the musical, and
That had to make the audition, I think, probably a little bit smoother.
A
Like,
little bit
I already
easier.
know the part, just give it to me.
No. But I auditioned several times, and eventually I got to play the part of Kim. So,
And that was the Broadway
that was my
production
introduction to.
of Miss Saigon.
I first joined the second national tour,
Yes.
and then eventually they brought me to New York. They brought me to Broadway.
And
Yeah.
that would not be your only national tour.
No.
You also were Nessa Rose
Yeah.
in Wicked.
Yes, here in San Francisco.
Yes!
I sat here for a couple of years. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Now I do have to. I've only read the book.
Oh.
So I'm curious. So I know that they're very, very different.
Yes,
Obviously-
I haven't read the book.
That's fine.
Okay.
But between the two of us, we're covered.
I think so.
Yeah.
But I really think you should.
So in the book, Nessa Rose doesn't have arms. Is that in there?
Nope.
You had arms.
I had arms.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
I figured that would be extremely awkward.
It would have been hard to maneuver the wheelchair.
Oh, so it was
without-
wheelchair.
Yes.
So it was just the shoes were for walking.
The shoes eventually for walking.
Spoilers! Oh
Spoilers.
no! I spoiled everything about Wicked for you guys. Still read the book. It's great.
Yes. No, I hear the book is excellent, but yes, they have made some adjustments for the musical.
That makes sense. Reading it as a book first, and then hearing that it was going to be a musical, I did not understand how that was physically possible. It is a very dark and dour story, and it doesn't seem like music plays any part in it.
You'd be surprised. You know, it makes a really wonderful musical. And
I've heard the soundtrack.
Okay.
I have heard the soundtrack.
Okay.
I'm not that inept.
No, but
I'm not that uncultured.
You really should when it comes. When it comes around again, I'm sure it will come back around. You should try and see it if you can.
So going from the party and then going into the world of theater and musical theater, what was the experience like getting to travel and perform in that sort of a capacity?
Well,
still singing.
Yes, it's a little bit different doing a television show as opposed to being on stage. When you're doing a television show, you get take after take. You can, if you mess up, they will just clean it up in editing. But when you're doing a stage show, you start the show and the show keeps going until it's done. So the show must go on no matter what happens. For example, in Miss Saigon, we have this helicopter that it's a wonderful scene. It comes onto the stage. It really looks like it's flying in. And oftentimes...
Stage magic.
Yes, the power of theater, the magic of theater. It really looks like... In some theaters, they had to accommodate this huge contraption. But sometimes the helicopter wouldn't...
Helicopter.
It wouldn't helicopter.
That is the technical term.
With lights and smoke and things and actors looking at something that should be there, it will make the audience believe that a helicopter landed on the stage. So, it's just stuff like that. The show must go on, and hopefully...
You could just have a stage manager backstage going...
No, the sound effects are still going.
Oh, good.
There's sound, there's lights, there's smoke, and the actors are, and
everyone believes it.
Everybody believes it.
Right now, I think we could make everyone believe that. Oh, there's a helicopter.
Oh. Everybody get down.
And an air horn. Thank you to our sound team.
They're on top of it.
I love getting to call out the air horn. And then from your work on Broadway and touring, you then went on to be in a couple of movies, including, I believe here, because I have notes, you were, I believe, in Sister Act 2?
Yes, Sister Act 2.
Back in the Habit.
Yes.
As a student?
Yes, a classroom student.
And now, so was that all still congruent with a lot of the theater, or was that still kind of before then?
That was before theater.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually auditioned with a song from Miss Saigon for that particular movie. But the party auditioned together, and I also was one of the lucky ones that got chosen to be in the film.
Was everyone else jealous?
I mean, I think I would have been, but I was sad, but I was super, super excited to be in this film. I had a teeny tiny role. I had one line that was given to me during the film. It wasn't part of the script, but it was really sweet. I think Whoopi and one of the other nuns, they were like, "Give DeeDee a line." And I thought, "Oh, thank you." So I got a chance to say one little line and be with all the students for the musical numbers and things like that. But that was a really fun experience. That we also filmed part of that in San Francisco.
That's right.
Yeah.
So now everyone is going to go home and watch Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit.
Back in the Habit, and try not to blink because you will miss me. Okay.
Everyone just eyes wide open.
Eyes wide open.
Bring your eyebrows. And then you were also in the remake of Rear Window with Christopher Reeve.
With Superman. Ah, he was such a sweetheart.
Oh, you got to meet him as
I
well.
got to work with him.
Oh, that's amazing.
I was called, my role was called the pop-off nurse. And you know, it was he was using a breathing machine, and at the time, this was after his accident.
Yeah.
So the breathing machine was actually a real machine. And I'm like, you know, are you sure you want to mess with this breathing machine? I am not a real nurse. And I was playing a nurse. And he says to me, don't worry, I can breathe without the machine. So don't worry. There's a real nurse that's standing by. But I'm like, I'm terrified. I mean, you're Superman. I cannot kill Superman. But yeah, it was really nerve-wracking, but also it was like super starstruck. He was really, really sweet. I got to meet some of his kids, and but yeah, that was another amazing experience. Yeah.
Now, obviously, that was a remake of a classic with
Yes.
absolute classic. Are you a fan of some of those earlier films?
If
Are
you
you a
give
film
me
buff?
some, I like films. I enjoy films.
What are some of your favorite films?
Some of my favorites that come to mind, I love Goonies and E.T. Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a favorite. You know, oh gosh, there's so many.
The heyday of the 80s classics.
Well, you know,
yeah.
like 16 can, I mean, you know, I know. Yeah.
Some of the best films in anyone's repertoire.
But I enjoy a nice rom-com and you know, tear-jerkers as well, and you know, I love the dramedies and yeah.
We like hearing what you're a fan of. We're all here because we're fans of you, and we want to hear what you're a fan of. It's a love fest.
I'm a fan of Steven Universe, to be
That's
honest.
right.
I really am.
So
I
let's-
mean, can you tell? I'm like decked
I have
out
a
in all the
sneaking
costumes.
suspicion. So let's dive in and talk about Steven Universe.
Okay.
And so, for those of you who were unfortunately not here on Friday, there was an amazing musical performance that tugged at my heartstrings. It was amazing. So you performed with the composers of the music for Steven Universe.
Ivy and Sriracha, they're amazing, and they're locally based, and I believe they perform every once in a while, so if you get a chance to see them.
Absolutely.
They're amazing.
I also saw a lot of camera phones out
Oh,
during the performance,
yes.
so go online. If you missed it on Friday, Kraken 2018, it's probably one of the best musical performances I've ever seen.
Oh, you're so...
It was amazing.
It was really a special time.
Had you had a chance to hear their Pearl medley ahead of time, or was that kind of the first time you had heard that?
Well, I heard it because of the show.
Oh, okay.
I've heard it, like, you know, underscoring with the show.
Yes.
But yeah, and then I also got to sing with Ivy's sister on.
Oh my God.
She's a beautiful voice.
So she filled in for the Estelle part.
Yes.
And oh my goodness.
Yes, right?
Are they still here? I want to give them like a round of applause
If
just
they
in case they're
are.
just in case.
Amazing. And then Michaela was on the violin.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Yes, if you get a chance to see it sometime online, but yeah. I'm also going to try and post my video. We'll see. My husband was here videotaping. He's an amateur videographer. So we'll see what takes, you know, are going to make the YouTube channel.
We'll see how pro it is.
We'll see.
Excellent. And speaking of that, if people want to follow you on social media,
Oh, yes,
where might they
please
find
do.
some of your stuff?
Yes, on the Twitter.
The Twitter?
The Twitter, I'm DeeDee Magno Hall, so at DeeDee Magno Hall. And then on the Instagram, I'm at DeeDee Magno Hall Official. And then I've just started my YouTube channel.
Ooh!
It's in the works, so I apologize. It takes me a little
Under
bit of while.
construction.
It is under construction.
YouTube pages are notoriously difficult. I've set up like 3 of them, and they're crazy. They're very counterintuitive.
But the time it consumes of your life, my hat's off to the YouTubers, because they must not have time to do anything else.
Probably not.
No. But yes, I do have one,
And
I will try to
what
post.
is the channel on YouTube?
I believe it's just my name, DeeDee
Excellent.
Magno Hall. It just keep it simple,
Just
right?
YouTube,
Same.
Twitter, Instagram.
Instagram.
Excellent. These panels, you are also a fan of Steven Universe.
I am.
How has it been getting to be a part of this show from its inception and were you instantly a fan of it, or that develop kind of as you were working on it?
I think that it happened as because at that point when I first auditioned for it, I was auditioning for hundreds upon hundreds of other things, for like television shows to films and commercials and video games, and so I wasn't booking anything. And then finally Steven Universe came along, and I loved the character, I loved the drawing and the character description. I went in there and they said they wanted just to hear somebody's natural voice, and they wanted the characters to be able to sing. And I thought, oh, I can try out for something, and I don't have to manipulate my voice. I could just have my own voice. And so when I
do a little bit different.
I do a little. Yeah. Pearl is definitely a more heightened, emotional version of my voice. But when I first started, I don't know if you saw the
pilot.
The pilot.
I did.
It's different.
Yes.
I feel like she's gotten a little bit
more. The
more.
animation style was also very different.
Well, yes, yeah. The style of the art, and also just the characters have grown so much since. But when people often ask me, did you even know how huge the show was going to be? And I thought, how could anybody know?
No one could.
How could anybody know? But I'm sure that Rebecca had a ton of her fans follow her from her earlier works with Adventure Time and even before that. So, I'm sure it was highly anticipated, but
everything she touches is a little bit sweeter.
I agree. I agree.
I am noticing very subtle groans for my Rebecca Sugar pun.
Oh, I just got that. I just got that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good,
I'm
good
a professional.
Job. I love a pun, especially when I can.
Don't we all? So speaking of the evolution of Pearl and the show, Pearl has grown so much over the course of the show. How much of that was your input, or was that cooperative? Did they see you just doing amazing things with Pearl? They're like, oh, no, this character's way more interesting. She's gonna get in a car chase.
I am absolutely certain that Rebecca had a plan from the beginning about how she wanted all of her characters to grow throughout the series and still continue to grow. But my hat's off to Rebecca and her, the Crooniverse. They are such an awesome team and also wonderful people to work with. Absolutely talented and really, really nice. And I'm not just saying that, but I feel like we have grown so much as a family, even, and the voice actors included. It's such a great environment to work with people who are just nice. You know what I mean?
That's
good. But also just doing wonderful work. But I am simply the voice of Pearl. I don't, I know that
it's a lot of people that go in to make the characters.
Absolutely. And I have a feeling also that just them getting to know us, the writers getting to know us a bit more, they'll incorporate personality, I think, naturally into the character.
And it's wonderful to see the characters grow. And we were talking earlier at some previous panels about how Steven Universe as a show has been so incredibly progressive, and how great it is to see more and more work from all of our guests of honor have been a part of these amazing progressive shows. Have you noticed an outcry, like specifically for finally seeing representation in shows like this?
Absolutely. I mean, this show has so much representation for everybody. I mean, I have never seen a cartoon where they made an ube cake, an ube roll, which is a Filipino dessert.
And delicious.
And delicious. You've had one.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. I think it's so incredibly important, and also it's just nice to watch even just a cartoon. And I know that it is a cartoon, but it's not just for kids. The people who have been drawn to the show and also, they identify with at least one person in the show, one character in the show, And I think that this show could not have come at a more perfect time in our life. And also, it's ultimately a show about love for all, and I think everybody needs that. Yeah.
I didn't realize until somebody had pointed it out to me, and then it was glaringly obvious, that just from the animation style alone, no character in the show looks like anyone else. Every single character on that show is wholly unique. And to see a show really emphasize everyone being unique in their own way is beautiful and incredible.
Yes,
I'm a Steven Universe fan myself. I am. I'm not just a fancy man with tall hair and a microphone. And it was funny, I actually originally started watching the show I was watching it as it was airing until about a season and a half in, and then I got distracted with life and things. And I actually went back to it fairly recently and binge watched so much, and I already knew everyone on the show was an incredible singer just from watching it, but it was one specific episode that you did a musical performance of on Friday, the Mr. Greg episode, where you did It's Over. And as soon as that song ended, I immediately looked you up, and I was like, I can smell a musical theater person from a mile away, and sure enough, and that's how I found out you were in Wicked and Miss Saigon. It's just really, it's wonderful to meet you.
Oh, it's wonderful to meet you too.
Thank you.
I love that also Rebecca is a huge musical theater fan. And so
wonderful.
she incorporates all of the music that she loves into her show, and that also is nice to have so much musical representation, like just all across the board. It's like there's not just one kind of music in the show.
Absolutely. I was actually in the previous Squidly show. I was talking with Kari about music in video games and in animation, and how anything with a really amazing emphasis on music stands the test of time. And so that's wonderful to see in Steven Universe as well.
It makes such a huge difference, you know, watching the cartoon without any sound or music, and then add it to. It's like it's a world of difference.
Now, I did want to ask, were there any challenges that you faced going into doing this sort of voice work? Because prior to this, obviously you have an amazing background in music and in theater, but going into voice acting for animation, were there hurdles that you had to cross?
Yes. The stamina that I need to really take care of my voice. If I, for example, before I recorded It's Over, I was doing a show called Tommy at East West Players in Los Angeles. And if you're not familiar with that show, it's a rock musical, and there's a lot of scream singing that I do in that show. And Rebecca, I actually asked if I could record it during the week that I was performing, and I was losing my voice, and I told her I had to reschedule. But it was still during that time that I recorded that particular song, and I could hear the hoarseness in my voice when I hear the recording.
Really?
Yeah, but for time's sake, we had to record. So I did the best that I could.
I think you did fantastically.
Oh, thank you.
As I'm sure every single person in this audience is going to agree with me. With an uproarious round of applause.
That's very sweet. Thanks. Thank you. But yeah, so that. Just trying to take care of my voice, hydrate and rest and lozenges and all of that, and supporting your voice, especially when you have a lot of efforts that we have to do, like the fighting noises and things like that, or screaming. That I know there is a way, a technique to scream, and I have not found out what that technique is yet. So.
Neither have I. I am looking for it. It's very difficult.
There is a way so you don't hurt yourself.
I need to talk to more metal singers. They know what it is.
They know what it is.
They know what it is. They know the
Exactly.
secret.
Yeah.
They know the secret.
Yes.
Yeah, I think somebody was applauding for metal singers.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. We'll have a private lesson after.
Good.
I think. But another thing is too that Pearl's dialogue sometimes can get very wordy and technical.
Yes.
And that is a challenge for me. They're words that I just would never say in my everyday life, and they're lengthy. So those are challenging for me in the booth.
Now, I know you'd mentioned in an earlier panel that you don't always get a chance to record with everybody. What are some of the difficulties you find recording by yourself when you know that you're having a dialogue with someone that's not there?
Right.
Because obviously the show, I just want to say, comes across very, very natural. I would not be able to pick a scene that two people recorded independently.
Mission accomplished.
Right?
I think that credit should go to whoever's voice directing that day, because oftentimes when a character is not present and there is a dialogue that goes back and forth, either Rebecca or the line director, and that's typically Kent Osborne, who also worked on Adventure Time with Rebecca, they'll fill in and they'll be the other character. And sometimes it works and is helpful, and then other times it's distracting and funny. And but you know, we do our best with what we have, you know, the resources that we have in the studio. But luckily, we get to do a lot of group records together.
That's good.
So it's much easier when you're in the room together and you can feed off of each other's energy, especially when we go down the line, down the actors, you know, where an effort is required. So, you know, Michaela typically is on my right, and then Zach, and then Estelle. And so if we're doing, you know, a scene where everybody has to, you know, land, you know, Michaela will be like, ugh, and then I'll go, ugh, and Zach will be like, ugh, and then Garnet, you know, I'm sorry, Estelle, she'd be like, ugh. That was my version.
I think that was a flawless impersonation.
But it's super fun to be in the room together, especially during the effort noises.
Now, are there any particular types of scenes that you enjoy working with Pearl the most?
I would have to say that singing songs are my favorite. I'm always, you know, really excited. Well, everybody is excited when Rebecca reveals that somebody is going to sing a song in the next episode.